Hey YouTubers, welcome back to this part 2 system to lean diagnosis on this 2000 Celica 1.8 liter engine. On this part 2, I'm going to pretty much show you guys the fuel pressure to see if the fuel pump is delivering sufficient fuel pressure to the engine. I will also perform an injector balance test to see if we have restricted injectors, which is my suspicion, which is causing this P0171. Pretty much off camera, I did do a visual inspection on the master flow sensor. To be honest, the master flow sensor looked fairly clean. I cleaned it anyways. I didn't really see any difference after cleaning the master flow sensor. I also redid the smoke test to see if we had any other vacuum leaks after replacing the valve cover, not the valve cover, the intake manifold gasket. I did see two minor leaks from two hoses. One of them was from the PCV valve, which is a little small crack, and the other one was from the valve cover breather hose, which was another crack on it. You know, these are the two hoses that I replaced. This is the breather hose from the valve cover. That's the crack that I saw, which was causing that little minor leak on the PCV valve hose. The leak was coming from the connection where the PCV valve, actually where the hose connects to the PCV valve. As I was removing the PCV valve from the PCV valve, the hose actually cracked. It broke off, so I did replace them, and I did redo the smoke test, and pretty much there was no more vacuum leaks. So that's pretty much a good seal right there on the intake system. Now I have my scan tool already connected. I'm pretty much showing you guys three pits. I'm gonna show you guys, or also verify that our master flow sensor is actually working properly. Pretty much the specs for this vehicle at idle, the calculated load should be between 11.3 and 16%, which is actually within spec, 14.9. The mass airflow sensor should read between 1.4 and 2 grams per second at idle. Our engine speed at idle should be within 700 plus or minus 50, so in other words between 650 and 750, which is within spec, which is a little bit too high, but still within spec. Perhaps a dirty throttle body. Another one. Okay, so now the specs for these the calculated load and the master flow sensor at 2500 RPM should be between 12.3 and 17.9%. The master flow sensor should be within 5.4 and 7.9 grams per second at 2500 RPM. So I'm going to perform that test right now to pretty much verify if our mass airflow sensor and calculated load are within spec. These two pits go hand in hand. So here we go. So at 2500 RPM, our calculated load should read around 12.3 and 17.9. So right now it's showing around 16, 15, which is actually within spec. Max should be 17.9%. Mass airflow sensor at 2500 should read no more than 7.9 grams per second. Right now it's reading 7.4, 7.6, which is also within spec. So at this moment, I don't think our problem is a problem with the faulty master flow sensor or a dirty master flow sensor. Like I said before, my suspicion is restricted injectors. So the next step to this, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the fuel pressure for this vehicle. The specs for this vehicle should be within 44 and 50 psi. All right guys, so I have the gauge already set up. Currently at idle showing about 48 psi, which is within spec of 44 and 50 psi at idle. But the way to actually check the fuel pump pressure is to actually do a snap throttle to see if this pressure is dropping or not. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a snap throttle to see if this pressure is dropping or not. So here we go. So doing a snap throttle, we saw that our PSI was steady at 48 PSI, which is good. I'm gonna do it one more time. This is a returnless system. So we see that we're still stuck at 48 psi, which is good. Our problem is not the fuel pump. So a backfire there on the intake system. Wow. So pretty much this vehicle is running too lean. Alright guys, so the next step to this diagnosis is to pretty much go ahead and do the injector balance test. But to perform this injector balance test, it should always be done with the cooled engine. Right now these injectors are pretty much hot. I'm going to wait anywhere from an hour to 2 hours before performing this injector balance test to have the injectors pretty much cooled down. Because there's a chance that by performing the injector balances with the hot engine, the boiling point on the fuel could mess up our readings. So I'm gonna wait anywhere from an hour to 2 hours before performing this injector balance test. All right, guys. All right, viewers, I have my OTC electronic fuel injector test already hooked up to injector number 1. I'm set at 50 pulses at 10 milliseconds. I have a capable scan tool. I'm using my Launch X431 Pro Mini to prime the fuel pump, which is going to be bi-directional control. There's pretty much 2 ways to do it. Either use a capable scan tool or disable your injectors along with your coil packs and then crank your engine, and that should prime your system. I opted to use a scan tool, which is much easier. Another tip is that the ideal temperature to do an injector balance test should always be around 68 degrees Fahrenheit. My injectors are not around that range right now, since I have the vehicle running for a while, and I've let the vehicle cool down for about an hour and a half already. So far, our fuel rail shows about 90.5, which is close enough to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Our injectors are showing about 101, which is not too bad, which is still close enough to 68 degrees, which is the ideal temperature. All right, guys, so right now that's our needle. That's our rest pressure. I'm going to go ahead and prime the system. So here we go. As I prime the system, it shows about 49, 48, about 47 psi. I'm going to turn it off now. So with the fuel pump turned off, we're around 42 psi. So that's our rest pressure starting point. So so I'm going to go ahead and press the button on the OTC electronic fuel injector tester, and let's watch our needle to see how much pressure it drops. So here we go. So it shows about 31 psi. So from 42 to 31 for injector number 1, showed about 11 psi drop. So next will be injector number 2. All right, so for injector number 2, I'm going to prime the fuel pump. Shows about 47 once again. I'm going to turn it off. Rest pressure shows about 42 once again. I'm going to hit the unit. There we go. So for injector number 2, it showed about 30 psi, which was a 12 psi drop. So number 1 was 11, number 2 so far shows 12. So now next will be number 3. Alright, so injector number 3 now, I'm going to prime the fuel pump. Shows about 47 once again. I'm going to turn it off. So rest pressure, 42. I'm going to hit the button. So for injector number 3, it shows about 30 psi, which is 12 psi difference once again from 42 to 30. So I'm going to do number 4 now. Alright guys, so this is injector number 4 now. I'm going to prime the fuel pump. Shows about 47 once again. I'm gonna turn it off. Rest pressure is 42. I'm gonna hit the button once again. So for number 4, it shows once again 30 psi, which is the difference of 12 once again. So from 42 to 30. The one that didn't show, the one that was not the same as the injector number 2, 3, and 4 was injector number 1. And if we could remember that in our data, our misfire count, we saw that injector cylinder number 1 was the one that was actually still having misfire counts. So perhaps that's the reason. Perhaps number 1 is the one that's the most restricted one. I'm going to go back to the injector number 1 and do another balance test. Just to verify once again. I'm going to prime the fuel pump. Make sure not to perform an injector balance test on a single cylinder no more than twice. So here we go. I'm going to turn the fuel pump off. Rest pressure is about 42 once again. I'm going to hit the button. So once again, it's indicated that it's about 31 psi for injector number 1. So it went from 42 to 31. So that's pretty much telling us that injector number 1 has some type of restriction. I've done some research already. Supposedly on these 1.8 liter engines, our fuel pressure drop should be around 12 psi. We saw that injectors 2, 3, and 4 had a psi drop of 12. But number 1, it still showed that it had about 11 psi drop from 42 to 31. So in order to try to fix this problem, it's either perform an injector cleaning service or go ahead and replace either the bad injector or all 4 injectors. I'm going to confirm with the customer to see what he wants me to do to have the injectors either serviced or have them replaced. Alright guys, so we have confirmed that number 1 was the one that was dropping less fuel pressure. So once the customer confirms, I'll pretty much bring you guys back to the to this diagnosis. Alright guys, so I talked to the customer. He has confirmed to go ahead and replace all 4 injectors. But before I replace them, I want to show you guys the resistance. Remember that the resistance for these injectors at 68 degrees Fahrenheit should be between 13.4 to 14.2. Currently showing 14.9, but the injectors at around 97.6 degrees Fahrenheit, our resistance is at 14.9. So as the injectors get cooler and they reach around 68 degrees Fahrenheit, this ohms should be between 13.4 and 14.2. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do the replacement of these injectors, and then I'll bring you guys back to this diagnosis. Alright guys, so I have already removed the injectors. Injectors 1 through 4, number 1 being on my left, and the one on the right is injector number 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It sees that injector number 1 is the one that actually has the screens the dirtiest. Number 2 is the cleanest. That's the one that actually never showed up a misfire count. Number 2, number 3, number 4 look kind of dirty too. So I'm pretty sure that, this was the reason why we're getting misfire counts on number 1, 3, and 4. Alright guys, so I have already replaced all 4 injectors with brand new ones. I have the OTC electronic fuel injector test already hooked up to injector number 1. I'm probably gonna end up just doing number 1 and show you guys the difference between the faulty one and a brand new injector. Just for the fact that I'm in time constraint right now. I need to finish this vehicle tonight. So right now with the fuel pump primed, it's showing about 48 psi. I'm going to turn the fuel pump off. So rest pressure is about 42 psi. So I'm gonna hit the OTC electronic fuel injector tester, and let's watch our fuel gauge. So here we go. So injector number 1, the brand new injector shows about 30 psi drop. So we did improve from 31 to 30. Alright guys, so next thing I'm gonna do is just, go ahead and just finish up this, connecting everything back together and go back to the scan data. Alright guys, this is crazy. I can't believe it. It seems that injector number 4, brand new injector out of the box, is faulty. Perhaps it's not spraying enough fuel. I should have done all 4 injector balance tests, but I only did number 1, just to show the difference between the old and the new. But it seems that injector number 4 is not working properly. Perhaps it's not spraying enough fuel. So it seems that this vehicle has to be corrected tomorrow. It's already too late. The store that sold me the injectors has already closed, so that means I'm forced to finish this vehicle tomorrow morning. But the one thing I did see is that our long-term fuel trim did drop from 44.48 to 23.40. Short-term is trying to counter the long-term. It's -16. So I guess to correct this this issue is to go back, is to remove this injector and get a new one. And this long-term fuel trim system to lean should be corrected and should be solved. Alright guys, so this vehicle has to be finished tomorrow morning, and I'll bring you back with the further diagnosis once I install the new injector to pretty much fix this problem on cylinder number 4. Alright guys, so this is moment of truth once again. I've already replaced injector number 4. I'm going to go ahead and erase the codes. So I'm going to first check what codes do we have at this moment. We see that we have P0300, we have P0304 due to the fact that injector number 4 was not working properly, and P0171 system to lean, and all these, the igniter circuit too, were pretty much done by me. So I'm going to clear the faults, start fresh once again. So I'm going to go ahead and go to data stream. Calculator load. So I'm going to go ahead and start the engine real quick for you guys. There's a long crank, due to the fact that the vehicle was actually priming the fuel system. We saw misfire count number 1, but it was a little quick one. So far, cylinder number 4 has 0. Long term showing at 27.3. vehicle is actually under a closed loop already. Short term's negative 20. So we'll see if short term starts bringing down the long term. Actually, the engine is actually idling much better than before. I'm gonna rev the engine real quick for you guys. Oh yeah, way better, guys. I don't see no hesitations no more. But long term did go up to 44 as I raised the RPMs. It's almost like indication of fuel delivery or perhaps a mass airflow sensor. But so far on our misfire counts, shows about 0 in all cylinders, which is way better than before. But I'm just waiting for the long term to start coming down again as short term starts countering the long term. Short term right now shows negative 20. I'm gonna pause for a moment, guys, as the engine warms up. You know, I'll bring you guys back to this data. All right, guys, so we're back again. I've let the vehicle warm up to 179.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So far, you know, everything's looking good. Our calculated load is within spec. It's under 16%. So far, there's no misfires counts. 1 through 4 shows 0. Our long-term fuel trim, little by little, is actually dropping. When I started the engine, it was around 27.3. We're at 15.59. MAF sensor, grams per second, is within range, under 2 grams per second. Bank 1 sensor 1 seems to be fluctuating between lean and rich. Bank 1 sensor 2 seems to be fluctuating as well. So I think this vehicle may have some type of exhaust leak before the catalytic converter, which is making this bank 1 sensor 2 act like the upstream O2 sensor. Now short term, it's actually countering the long term. It's at negative 12. So if we subtract the total fuel trim between long term and short term, we have a total fuel trims of anywhere from 1 to 2% so far, which is good. So 15.5 minus 14.8 is close to about 1%. So I guess the next thing I'm gonna do for you guys is drive the vehicle. I'm gonna do it off camera, then come back and show you guys one more time the fuel trims. All right, guys, so after a 15-minute drive, I've come back again. I have the data already for you guys. Calculated load seems to be within spec, below 16%, which is a max number at idle. Our coolant temp is at 203. Misfire counts 1 through 4 looking good. They're at 0. Long-term fuel trim did drop to 6.22, which is good. So it's now within that plus or minus 10%. Our MAF sensor is within that 2 grams per second range, which is the max for at idle. Bank 1 sensor 1 seems to be fluctuating between rich and lean, which is also good. But my only concern once again is that Bank 1 sensor 2, the downstream O2 sensor, seems to be fluctuating the same as the Bank 1 sensor 1, which is not good. Like I said before, I think this vehicle may have an exhaust leak before the catalytic converter, or there's a potential restriction on that catalytic converter. Then short term seems to be fluctuating on that negative %. between -1, -3, -5. But now, if we take the total fuel trims between the long term and short term, if we add them up, we're pretty much taking 6.22 plus -7, -5. So we're anywhere from -1 to +1, which is good, which is also within that 0% total fuel trims. So I'll say for now, we have fixed this P0171, which was causing this system 2 lean on bank 1. So now the next thing I'm going to show you guys to see if there's any codes, pending codes with that P0171, just to confirm that we have fixed the problem by replacing the injectors. So far there's no check engine light on. Alright, so the only code that's pending is a P0420 catalyst system efficiency below threshold, bank 1. For a minute I was wondering why this computer was not triggering the P0420, just for the fact that the bank 1 sensor 2 O2 sensor was pretty much fluctuating between rich and lean. So that confirms my suspicion that either this vehicle may have an exhaust leak before the cat, or this vehicle may have some type of restriction on that catalytic converter. So depending what the customer wants me to do, if he wants me to diagnose this P0420, I might just tell him to take it to a muffler shop to see if there's any exhaust leaks before the catalytic converter. Alright guys, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this little journey I did with this P0171 System 2 Lean on this 2000 Toyota Celica. I'll say this vehicle is a fix with that P0171 by replacing the injectors, all 4. Alright guys, so this is Eli the Obity Tech. Subscribe if you like.